Hello and welcome back for episode number 162 of the weekly playback. Before we get started, I'll just let you know that the neighbor who is behind my backyard, whose house is behind there, so he has been, what's the word? Is it grinding up? I don't know what the word is, but he's been putting a lot of tree branches into this thing to like grind them up or saw them up or mill them up. I really don't know what the verb is. So it's been making a lot of noise. He's been doing that for a few weeks. He stopped momentarily, but he's been doing that since this morning. So I hope the noise doesn't carry on over to this video, but if it does, I apologize for that. There's really nothing I can do about it. So anyway, with that being said, let's get started. Let's talk about Ayar Children of the Sun. This is a 2025 game for 1 to 4 players designed by Mandela Fernandez-Grandin and Fabio Lopiano, and the art is done by Ian O'Toole, and this is published by Osprey Games. And this is a review copy which I received from Osprey. And this completes the trilogy of games, and I say trilogy because it's a very loose trilogy. Not all the games are connected by theme. So although the first 2 games kind of had an Islamic theme to them and took place in countries which, Islam could be found, this one takes place in South America. And in this game, it says that you are retelling the incredible origin myth of the Inca in this dramatic midweight Euro game. So it has to do with the Incan peoples and their origin myth. In the description of what this game is about is quite long, so I'm not going to read the entire thing, but you are basically controlling clans and you are journeying with the Ayar across the Andes Mountains. So we will talk about what all of that means as we start to talk about how this game works, but I will show you the components and the board because that is important, of course. So the board looks like this, and it's quite long. So this is the main board. I'm actually going to post a picture because obviously I can't pull this up multiple times. So you'll see different pathways along the Andes Mountains that the different male Ayars are going to go along. So there's 4 different colors for the 4 different Ayars. So you have a dark blue Ayar, which looks like this. You have this kind of like burnt orange color. Then you have a purple one, and then a teal colored one. So these are the male Ayars, which are going to start at the beginning of their respective paths. And along the way, you're going to see these squares or rectangles that look like these, and these are Raimi tiles. And we'll talk about what Raimi tiles are and how they trigger. But there are 8 of them in total on the board, and then there's one final one that's printed on the board. And again, we'll talk about what they are and what they do and how they trigger and all of that when we get to it. On the main board, you're also going to see a temple here, and on the temple on the leftmost side, you're going to place the female Ayar of each color randomly. So, wherever you place them, they'll just be random. So there's no specific order that you need to place the female Ayars, but each one will go in a row at the leftmost spot. And then your player board. So before we get to the player board, there's also going to be a lake board next to the main board. So the lake board looks like this. So you are going to be filling this area with maize, corn if you wish, and you'll be traveling your boats up along here and placing islands if you want to, if you do a boat action. And along the side, you're going to have things that you can take. So up here, there will be textile tiles that you can collect if you want to, and over here, there will be pottery tiles that you can collect if you want to. And you'll see that there is a different strength value, which indicates which tiles you can take when you are able to collect a tile. Then your own player board is going to look like this. And again, I'll be posting pictures, but on this player board, you're going to cover the suns over here with your island pieces. So each person will have island pieces that look a little bit different. So these are the ones for the purple. So you're going to cover all the suns here. And then you're going to place your houses, which I believe are called tombos. So you're going to place all 16 of your tombos covering each section in this grid over here. So you'll have 16 tombos placed in total. And at the start of the game, you will place one out at the very beginning of the game. But to start with, you're going to cover all of these. And then, let's see, I believe that that's all you're placing onto your board. Oh no, you're going to place all of your maize cubes covering the square spots up here. So all of your corn or maize cubes will be covering these spots. So as you start to uncover things, you will uncover suns and moons. And you are going to have a sun and moon score marker around the main board on the score track. And you are trying to keep them relatively balanced because at the end of the game, the lower of the two is what is going to be your final score. So if your sun score is lower than your moon score, then you will get the points for your sun score at the end of the game, and that will be your final score. So you're going to be scoring for both things as you play this game. So you are going to have these step markers that you are going to be placing around your little, I'll just call it, it's called a tombow grid. So you'll see over here that there are sections that you can place your step marker into. And that is how you will end up taking an action. So you're going to place these step markers here. So I guess we're at the point where we can just start talking about how to play. So basically, the important thing to keep in mind is that you are going to score for both sun and moon, but sun is something that you want to start scoring early on in the game, because if you don't, you will be utterly screwed. It is far easier, I feel, to score moon points than it is sun points. So if you are not paying attention to your sun points early on, you will end up with a pretty low score in the end of the game. Like I had a really high moon score, but a low sun score at the end of the game. So I want to first talk about these Ramie tiles because these are really important. So whenever an Ayar, a male Ayar on the main board reaches the spot where there is a Ramie tile, then you are going to score for this Ramie tile. So actually, I guess we'll talk about that in a little bit, and we'll talk about how the different areas score. But I'll just go over how you're going to take your turn and then what each action or step of your turn means. So again, for the starting activity, you're going to do this at the very beginning of the game. You're going to perform one activity. So starting with the first player and moving clockwise, you will place a tombow from any slot on your player board. So again, you have your tombow grid with your 16 tombos. So you will place one of those onto an activity space on any path that you can place it on. So when you are playing this game, you can only place your tombos in locations that are behind the Ayar, which corresponds to the tombow, which corresponds to the step marker that you used. So for example, if I used my purple step marker and I placed it onto my player board over here, so let's suppose I placed my purple step marker over here, you will see an arrow next to that location, which means one movement. So there's going to be 3 locations on this side which say one movement and only one that says 2 movement, and likewise down here. So 3 of them say 1 movement and 1 of them says 2 movement. So when you place one of your step markers, the corresponding Ayar will move on the main board along its path. So it will move however many spaces it can move according to where you placed your step marker. So let's suppose we placed a step marker that we placed our step marker in the 1 movement slot. So the Ayar stop on numbers. So each Ayar is going to start on number 1 of their respective paths. So when you do your starting activity, each person will get to place their tombow on one of these 4 spaces, because you can only place your tombos behind the Ayars. So one person would have placed a tombow here, one person would have placed a tombow here, one person would have placed a tombow here, and one person would have placed a tombow here. And then you would do the corresponding action. And when you place your step marker on your turn, the Ayar that corresponds to the step marker you used is going to move that number of spaces. So it might move 1 spaces or it'll move 2 spaces maximum. And then you can place the tombow from that step marker's row or column, depending on what you used. So you'll take a tombow of your choice and place it onto one of those action spots, one of those tombow spaces. So the first thing you're going to do is place a step marker onto your main board. Then you will move the corresponding Ayar. Then you will choose and place a tombow, and then you will perform the activity. So the 4 different activities that appear on this main board where you are going to be placing your tombows are pottery, weaving, terrace farming, or reed bundling. So pottery just simply allows you to collect these pottery tokens, and you're going to be placing them at the bottom of your board. So there's going to be a certain number of pottery tokens available next to the lake board. So you'll always have pottery tokens. You'll have one face up here, one face up here, one face up here, one face up here, and then a face down stack here. So you will be able to select a pottery token depending on what strength you have. So now how you determine strength is by counting up the empty spaces that are either in the row or column where you placed your step marker. So let's suppose I had placed my step marker over here, and I'm just flinging things around. This is not working very well, and I don't even, oh, here we go. So let's suppose I had placed my step marker over here, and let's suppose I had 2 empty spaces, meaning that I had placed those tombos. One which I would have done in this turn, because you have to take a tombow from the row or the column where you placed your step marker. So now if I have 2 empty spaces showing in this column, that means my strength is 2. So whichever action I'm doing, I have a 2 strength. So in that case, if I'm doing the pottery action, I would come here and I could collect the level 2 pottery item that is over here. And then the rest would slide down, and then a new face up one would come here. If I had a strength of 4, I can split them up. You can always take a level 3 and a level 1, but you cannot take more than one of the same type. So I could not take 4 level 1 potteries, for example. You only have the choice of what is there. So if I had a level 4, I could take a 3 and a 1 to equal a 4. But again, you cannot take more than one of a single type. So if I had a 4, I could not take 2 level 2 potteries because they don't slide down until the end of your turn. If I had a 4, I could take a face down one if I wanted. You do not get to flip it over though. So a face down one will look like this, and it will count as all 4 colors, or 5 colors rather, for set collection purposes when it comes to scoring. Some of these, if you collect it, have this symbol on it. That is a Viracocha. Anytime you see a Viracocha symbol, you can take a Viracocha, and those can be very beneficial because you will be placing them onto your player board immediately when you get them. And I'll talk about how you use these, but you might be able to collect one of these. And again, I'll talk about how they are used in a little bit. But first I'll go over all the main actions. So that is the pottery action. Another action you can do is weaving. So if you stopped on a weaving space on the main board, which looks like this, if that's where you placed your tombow, and again, you can only place a tombow behind the Ayar on the current path for the step marker that you chose, then you can do a weaving action. So again, along the main, the lake board, you're going to have a bunch of weaving tiles over here. So you'll have strength 1, strength 2, strength 3, and then strength 4. The weaving tiles are a little bit different. So there are a few different types for, a couple of different types for each strength. So for example, let me see if I can find 2 different types. So these are both a strength 1. So depending on which one is there, you might be able to, actually, sorry, they are both the same. So let me find another one because I know they're, oh, sorry, here's a different one. So these are both strength 1 tiles, and you'll see that each of them have half a sun on it. So these are strength 1 tiles, and then strength 2, let me try to find, so here are 2 different strength 2 tiles, and again, you'll see that each one has half a sun on it, but this one has 2 half suns, and then here is a strength 3 tile, and I believe, let me see, so these are the 2 different examples of strength 3 tiles. And again, you'll see the half suns on them. And then finally, the strength 4 tiles look like this. and they have a complete sun and a Viracocha symbol on it. So you are placing your weaving tiles onto your main board in this grid over here. So when you place a weaving tile, you are going to cover up 2 spaces. The goal is for you to make complete suns in your tapestry over here. So the more of these tiles you collect, you want to try to complete your suns because that will get you points. And we'll talk about how you earn sun points and all of that when we get to that part of the game. And also, when you complete a column, that will earn you moon points. So you'll get the moon points for the farthest along column you completed in your tapestry. So you're going to start on this side of your tapestry and build out this way as you are adding more and more pieces to your tapestry. But that is how the tapestry works. And so when you do a tapestry action, when you place your tombow on a tapestry, you will get to select one of the tiles that is available in the tapestry area of the lake board. So again, depending on your strength, how many empty spaces are in the column or row where you placed your step marker and where you removed your tombow from, that is going to determine your strength. So you can either take a strength 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. And again, if you have a strength 4, you can split it up between a 3 and a 1 if you want to, but you cannot take more than one of a single type of tile, again, as we already discussed. So that is the weaving action. So you'll take a tile and place it into your tapestry. If you are doing terrace farming, so terrace farming means that you will start to remove cubes from up here and place them into the temple area of the lake board. So the lake board, it's not actually a temple, sorry, it's just a terrace. So you're going to start by placing them in the top and starting in the leftmost section. And anytime anyone places any maze cubes there, they're just going to continue and filling up the row, because then at the end of a round, you will determine who has the most maze there and they will get a reward. So you have to start at the top on the leftmost side, because that determines a tiebreaker in case there's a tie. So again, for the terrace farming action, you will simply remove cubes from one of your sections up here. So you can remove cubes here, and you'll see that they are offering you different kinds of rewards. So for example, if you cleared this whole section, you would have 1 sun and you would have 4 moon points. If you cleared this whole section, you would have 1 sun and 8 moon points. So you would decide where you want to remove the cubes from when you are doing the terrace action. So it says place maze equal to your power. So again, it's equal to your power. So again, you'll check the power in the column or the row from which you placed the step marker and see how many empty tombow spaces you have, and that determines how many terrace maze cubes you can take. So you will place maze equal to your power in the first available slots in the terrace farming area of the lake board, starting from the top left. It says you can take maze from any box on your player board, but within each box you must take the leftmost maze. So it seems like you can split up between boxes if you choose to, but you always have to take the leftmost one if you take any. And if you ever again see a Viracocha symbol, you will again take a Viracocha tile, and we'll talk about what those mean. And then finally, the last action that is possible to take by placing one of your tombows is the reed bundling action. This is where you will move your boat up according to the strength of your action. So again, you'll count up the empty tombow spaces on the grid and then move your boat up that many spaces. If you enter a square slot where you do not already have an island, you can take one, the leftmost island from your player board, and place it down onto that island spot. So on the main board, you are going to see these square place spots where you can place an island. The blue ones, only one player can place an island there, but the yellow ones, multiple people can place islands in the yellow slots. And you're going to see some areas where there will be Viracocha tiles placed. So you're going to have Viracocha tiles placed here, one here, and a couple here, and depending on player count, you'll have a certain number of Viracocha tiles that are placed. And when you build an island, you can take a Viracocha tile that is adjacent to that location. So if I built an island here, for example, I would be able to take a Viracocha from here because that is within that section. So you would look, and if I built an island here, I would be able to take a Viracocha tile from here. So you're going to look and see which Viracocha pile your island is kind of adjacent to, and you can take a tile from there. So you're going to be moving up the number of spaces according to your strength. So to go here would cost 1 strength, but there are going to be spaces where it will cost, like for example, 2 strength for you to move your boat into. So, you know, and you can decide which path you want to take, because when it comes to moon scoring, you will score your moon points for the island which you have the most moon points for. So if I had multiple islands built, and I did because I reached all the way to the top, I would take the highest value moon points and score for that when it comes to a moon scoring for this action. So that is what rebundling is. Okay. So we will talk about, so I just talked about all the actions. So each player is simply going to place a step marker of their choice, move the corresponding Ayar, and then place a Tombow on that Ayar's path. And that will determine which action you take. And again, your Tombow must be placed behind the Ayar on that path. So if I placed my purple step marker, I'm going to move the purple Ayar on its purple path, and then I will take a Tombow from the row or column where I placed my step marker and place that onto an action space behind where the Ayar currently is and take the corresponding action. And then again, the strength value of your action is determined by how many empty spaces there are in the row or column where you placed your step marker. So that is the gist of a turn, and we talked about what the 4 different actions are that you will be taking. So now let's talk about how certain scorings are triggered. So now Ayars, when a certain Ayar reaches one of those rainy tiles on the board, that will trigger a scoring. So each side is going to start with one side up, and then once one Ayar reaches it, you will flip it over, and then it will give you another side for you to score, which is a little bit more difficult for you to gain the reward. So for example, let's suppose that one of the Ayars reached this tile on the board, and 2 different Ayars will always reach one of these tiles. So each tile is connected to 2 different paths, and the different paths of the Ayars will start to move in different ways. So at one point, it might look like, for example, let me see if I can show you in the rule book, because it might be a little bit easier to see this way. So you'll see that it starts out with the purple and the brown kind of moving together. But then in a later section of the board, the purple and the dark blue are together. So the paths start to move in different directions and start to, you know, go along different colors. And that's also going to be important because at the end of a round, the Ayar, which is farthest back, is going to retire. And we will talk about what that means. And that happens at the end of a round. And we'll talk about end of round scoring and all of that. But whenever an Ayar reaches one of these rainy tiles, you will score for it. And that can obviously happen on someone's turn. So you're going to look at the action that is indicated on the rainy tile and then see how many suns you have showing corresponding to that action. So this one happens to be the boat action. So you would see how many suns you have uncovered by placing islands. So if we came to this rainy tile because an Ayar reached it, you would see how many suns you have available here, and you would add that number to your inti dial. So this scoring dial is called an inti dial, and every person has one in their player color. So you will add up the number of suns and put that into your inti dial. So that is how that rainy tile scores. Additionally, if you have 2 or more suns, you will get to collect a llama token, and llama tokens are very valuable for the end of the game. That's when you use them. So you use them at the end of the game to convert them into either sun or moon points. So we'll talk about that when we get to end of game scoring. So that is how that rainy tile works. This one is for terrace farming. So you would count up the number of suns that show in your terrace farming section. So if you placed a lot of cubes in the farming section, you would count up how many suns you have showing, and again, add that number to your Inti dial. And again, it'll show you a number down here, and if you have met that number of suns, you'll get to collect a llama token. So then there's another one for the boat. So as you can see, some of these are the lower level ones and some of them are the higher level ones. So the level A ones will come up earlier in the board and the level B ones will come up later in the board. But you really want to pay attention to where these are placed, because you're going to randomly place the level A ones in the spots where they belong, and you'll randomly place the level B ones in the spots where they belong. And it's really important to score sun points early on. So I would recommend looking at which tiles are out there and which ayars are close to reaching a tile and what might be scored, because if you don't score those Inti points, sun points early on, you will be utterly screwed. So this one is for pottery. Now for pottery, you are placing your pottery pieces that you collect down here. So one per slot. So as you start to collect more and more, you're going to get suns. So you get your first sun when you place your second pottery piece. You get your second sun when you place your third pottery piece. You get your third sun when you place your fourth pottery piece, and so on. So those are the suns you will be counting for pottery when you see a rainy tile that has pottery scoring on it. And which one did we not talk about? Weaving. So for weaving, of course, as I explained, the different tapestry tiles, they have half of suns on them, or if you manage to collect a level 4 tile, you would have a complete sun. So you are going to count how many complete suns you have in your tapestry, and that is what you would get for your Inti. That's what you would add to your Inti dial for that rainy tile scoring. And again, you would see if you met the requirement for the bottom part to get a llama. So whenever an Ayar reaches one of those tiles on the board by reaching that path, that tile on its path, and again, there's going to be 2 different colors for each rainy tile. So here, for example, it's teal and dark blue. Here you can see it's orange and dark blue. Here you can see it's purple and dark blue. Here you can see it's purple and dark orange. So again, different paths, actually, sorry, the one, yeah. So there's, you'll see like there's a line, it's very faint, hard to see here, but there's lines connecting to the rainy tiles to show you exactly which Ayar can trigger that tile. And once it's scored, you will then flip it over to the harder side. And if it is scored for a second time, then it gets removed from the board, because obviously you're not going to score for that again. So that is a scoring that can happen during someone's turn if an Ayar reaches that tile. Another thing that you can score for during your turn is if you completely remove all the tombos from a row or a column. So you'll see some of these have Inti scorings and some of them simply have things that you can pick up. So if I completely removed my tombos from the first column, I would get to do an Inti scoring for that, whatever that is. So this one looks like terrace farming. So if I completely removed all my tombos from that row, I would get to do an Inti scoring for my terrace farming. So I would see how many suns I have available in the section and add it to my dial. If you completely remove all the tombos from a row or a column showing a Viracocha, you get to collect a Viracocha tile. If you remove all the tombos from a row or a column showing a llama, you get to collect a llama. So you are going to be unlocking these personal bonuses on your own player board as you remove tombos, which you are placing onto the main board, which again allows you to take a certain action. Once you have removed all 4 tombos from a rectangle, you can place down one of your temple tiles onto the main board. So you will decide where you want to place it. And you probably want to place it next to an Ayar that you think is going to move farthest along its path. And we'll talk about why when it comes to scoring your temple tiles. But basically, once you've completed, have removed all 4 tombos from a rectangle in your Tombow grid, you can place your temple in one of the leftmost spots available on one of these rows. If all 3 spots are taken in one of the rows, you can always place it here and any number of tiles can go over here. However, you will score more points if you are in the leftmost spot, more moon points, and then you'll score some additional points as well if you're in the middle spot, and then 1 additional moon point if you are here. And we'll talk about how these tiles score when it comes to that part of the game. So, just to reiterate, basically a day phase, everyone is going to take turns placing a step marker. So at the beginning of the game, each person has 5 step markers. You have 1 step marker representing each of the different Ayar colors, and then a wild. So this gold can be used to move any Ayar on the main board. So you will state which color it represents, and then you will place your Tombow on that path as you do typically when you place a step marker. So again, you will place a step marker, move the Ayar, choose and place a Tombow, perform the activity. And then you do your end of turn checks. You will check to see if you have removed all 4 Tombows from a rectangle, allowing you to place a temple. If so, you place it down. You will check to see if you do your own INTI scoring or collect anything by having cleared a column or a row on your Tombow grid. If so, you will do your INTI scoring, or you will collect your bonus Viracocha or Llama. And then finally, you will do a Raimi scoring if the Ayar reached a Raimi tile, which we talked about. So you will continue in this fashion during the day until all the players have placed their step markers. And then you go to the next part, which is the night phase. Now you will retire an Ayar. So you're going to see which Ayar is farthest behind on its path, and that Ayar is going to retire. So again, when Ayars move along the main board, they are stopping on the numbers. So it's very easy to see which Ayar is farthest back, because you'll just see which number it is on. And that Ayar is going to now go to the temple of the main board. And it's going to come to the end of that row on that temple. And then its female counterpart is going to want to meet that Ayar by traveling along and joining him. So as the female moves along, you are going to score each temple tile that was placed there, if there are any there. So the first thing, but before we score the temple tiles, you're going to harvest maize. So first the Ayar retires and goes to the end of the temple row in which its female counterpart is in. And then you do the harvest maize part. So you will see who has the most corn cubes in that section of the lake board, and they will gain a reward. So it says the player who planted the most maize in the terrace farming area of the lake board this round will gain the Viracocha next to the female Ayar in the temple area whose partner is retiring. So they will get a Viracocha tile. And again, I will talk about what those Viracocha tiles do. And then you will score the temples. So now, but before scoring any temples, you will see if any player unlocked the Viracocha bonus that is related to the temples, and they will get points for that. So I guess now is a good time to talk about how Viracochas work. So when you get a Viracocha tile, you are going to place it on one of the spaces where you see the Viracocha symbol. And when you have the requisite number of Viracocha tiles in that space, you will flip the top one over to show that it is activated. So these top ones here, they each require 2 Viracocha tiles. So as soon as I place my second one, I can flip it over to show the green crystal to show that it is activated. And whenever I do an INTI scoring for that action, not an INTI scoring. Whenever I do that action, I gain an extra strength. That's what that symbol is. So suppose I had unlocked the middle one, which I actually did in my game by placing 2 there. Now when I do the boat action, I can add an extra strength. So if I had actually 3 empty spaces when doing the boat action, but I had unlocked this, it would give me a strength of 4 instead of 3. So that's how those ones work. These ones will give you either like some kind of a one-time thing. So like, for example, this one requires just 1 Viracocha tile and you can collect a llama token. This one, however, which requires 2 Viracocha tiles, For every temple tile you have in the temple, before temple scoring, you will gain 2 moon points. So you will move your moon tracker around the main board to show that you have earned 2 moon points. The next one, I'll just explain what all of them do before we continue. The next one, which looks like this one, says that if you place 3 Viracocha there, it permanently gives you 1 extra sun whenever you gain Inti Devotion from any activity. So if you had, like, for example, 3 suns showing for weaving, but you were scoring weaving and you had unlocked this, you would actually get 4 suns and be able to add 4 to your Inti dial instead. The next one, which looks like this, that allows you, so if you have 3 Viracocha there, this immediately allows you to move one of your retired step markers to a different slot, making the slot available again for future moon scoring. We haven't gotten there yet, so you don't know what it means yet, but I'll explain when we get there. And the last one requires 4 Viracocha. Placing 4 Viracocha here immediately adds 6 to your Inti dial for each Inti personal bonus already scored. So when you score these Inti bonuses by emptying the whole row or column, you place one of your score markers over it to show that it's already been scored. However, if you had unlocked that special ability, so for example, if I scored this Inti bonus, I would place my score marker over it to show that I've already scored it so I don't do it again. However, if you unlocked this ability by having 4 Viracocha there, you would get to add 6 to your Inti dial for each personal bonus already scored. So that's something you might want to do towards the end of the game when you've already scored like maybe 3 of your Inti bonuses on your personal board. Okay, so going back to the night phase, so if you had unlocked this bonus, you will get 2 moon points for every tile you still have in the temple. Now we're going to do temple scoring. So now the female counterpart is going to move over each temple tile that is placed here, and each person who placed their temple tile there will score for their temple tile. And each person has 4 temple tiles that they are able to place out, showing the 4 different actions. So for example, this is one for the bundling action, the boat action. So if the female counterpart is moving over this temple tile, I will see how many moons I have showing in my boat section of my player board. So again, if I had, removed a number of my islands, I would have unlocked, oh, actually, sorry, the moons are not here. The moons are on the lake board. So when you place islands, you will take the highest moon value of the island you have placed. So if I placed multiple islands, which I did, I will look and see which one gives me the most moon points. So for example, if I had my highest island here, I would score 16 moon points then. So that is how the temple tiles will score. You will check your moon points for each action that is depicted on here, if it's your temple that she is going over, and score the moon points corresponding to that. And then again, as we discussed, if you were the first one to place a temple tile there, you will also score an additional 6 points. If your temple tile was in the 2nd spot, you would score an additional 3. And if it was in the 3rd spot, you would score an additional 1. If you had a temple tile in the last spot, you can have any player can place a temple tile there, so it's not limited to just one person, but you would not score any additional points. So the female counterpart is going to move over these temple tiles, and each player will score their own temple tile and then remove it from the temple, and then the female and the male will meet at the end, and they will sit there together like this. So that shows you which Ayar has retired. Now you're going to take the corresponding step marker after the Ayar has retired and you've scored the temple, and then you're going to place it onto one of these 4 sections and do a moon scoring for that action. So again, the different actions have different moon scorings. So we talked about the boat. It's about your farthest island, your highest scoring island that you have. For maze, if you completely uncovered a section, it would be the highest scoring section you have here. I believe it's just the highest scoring, but I can just double check. It might be all of them, but let me just double check for that one. So in the rule book, each action tells you how to score for the sun and moon for each thing. So for pottery, I guess I'll just go in order. So for pottery, the moon scoring is determined by how many pots you have in each of the 5 pot colors. So this is where set collection comes in. So sets of 1, 2, 3, and 4 pots of the same color are worth 1, 4, 9, and 16 points as indicated on the player boards. So if you had placed your pottery temple tile and the female went over that, you would score your moon pottery points by seeing how many sets of pottery you have. For weaving, moon scoring, your moon score is the value shown below the rightmost consecutive completed column of textiles in your weaving area. All columns to the left of the completed column must also be complete in order for it to score. So as I explained before, you definitely want to start from the leftmost and complete each column because otherwise you're not going to get the moon points. So if you had completed the first 2 columns completely, then you would score moon points equal to this number. So of course the numbers are going to get higher as you build your tapestry more and more. So that is the moon scoring for textiles. Terrace farming, moon scoring. Your moon score is the total number of moons revealed by emptying boxes on your player board. So you actually will count all of the moons. Pink has planted 12 maize so far. In doing so, they have revealed 4 suns and 14 moons, which will translate into devotion and moon points in later steps. Okay, so yeah, you do actually add up all of the moon numbers that you have uncovered in this section of the board. So it's not just one of them, it will be all of the moons that you have uncovered. But again, remember, for each section you uncover the cubes, you have to start with the leftmost and go from that cube. So you can't just pick a cube from the middle or from the far right to show the moon symbol. You have to go in order. And then finally, we already talked about rebundling. So the moon score is the highest number next to an island you have on the lake board. So again, that is how those temple scores work. And when you place your retired step marker here, you're going to again score for the moon points over the action that you are placing it. Now the rule book says don't be afraid to place it on something that is going to score 0 in the first round. And that is very true because as the game progresses, you are going to get higher and higher in moon points in certain actions. So you want to save those moon scorings for towards the end of the game. But again, at the end of the game, it's the lower of the 2 scores that is going to be your score. So in the beginning of the game, you really want to focus on getting sun points. And the reason you want to focus on getting points on your inti dial is because they are cumulative. So let me continue with the nighttime phase because then you'll see how that works. So dawn. So after you've scored your step marker by placing it onto your board, the retiring step marker, so that step marker is no longer going to be used for you to determine which action you're doing or which ayar you're moving because that ayar has retired, hence your step marker has retired as well. So after you've done this, you are going to score your inti dial. So now you will see how many points you have on your inti dial and move your sun score marker that many spaces along the score track on the main board. And this is cumulative. So if in one round you had 4 points on this, but in the next round you ended up adding 10 to that, so now you have 14. At the end of the next round, you're going to move 14 spaces. So it's cumulative. You do not reset this to 0 at the start of a round. So it's really important for you to start getting sun points early on and paying attention to what's going to score you sun points from these tiles, which the ayars might arrive to as they are progressing along the tracks. And that is essentially the game. So again, each person is going to place their step markers onto the grid into one of the open locations. Oh, actually, we should talk about what happens once the step markers are there. So when you place a step marker in a round, you are going to have it lying down to indicate that you've used that space and you can't use that space again, and that step marker has been used. At the end of the round, you're going to stand up all of the remaining step markers, meaning all of the ones who have not retired, because one will have retired and gone up here. So you, at the end of the first round, you will have 4 step markers remaining, and you will stand them up in their current locations. And this is where things get interesting, because now in the next round, you will use one of the stood up step markers and move it to an empty spot. So you can't move it to a spot where another step marker is. So you're going to have to move a standing step marker to an empty spot and lie it down there to show that you've used that step marker. So as the round progresses in rounds 2 and 3 and 4, you'll have, in round 2 especially, you'll have fewer spaces to go to on your first turn because there's going to be standing step markers in some of the spaces. So that is how that will work in subsequent rounds. You're always going to stand up your step markers and then choose a standing step marker and place it into an empty location and have it lie down to show that you've used it. Okay, so now let's talk about, so again, just a brief overview. You'll use your step markers, take a tombow from the row or column, place that tombow onto a main action spot on the corresponding track of the Ayar that you moved according to the number of arrows shown next to the space where you placed your step marker. And then you will take the corresponding action. And then you will do those end of turn checks. You'll see if you are able to place a temple. You'll see if you've unlocked a personal bonus in your temple, your tombow grid, and you'll see for all the players whether there's going to be a rainy tile scoring. And then it will be the next player's turn, and you will continue in this fashion until all the players have placed their step markers for that round. Then you go to the night phase where an Ayar will retire. You'll see which Ayar is farthest back, and that Ayar will move to the temple to the rightmost slot. Then you will harvest maize. In harvested maize, the cubes just get taken off the board and they go back to their respective players, but just off to the side because you don't put them back onto your player board, of course. So they're just cubes that you're not going to touch again for the rest of the game. Then you score the temples, and then you take your retired step marker and do a moon scoring by placing it into one of the slots above on your player board. And then you score the sun points that is on your inti dial on the main board, and then you stand up all of your step markers, and you're also going to pass the first player marker to the next player, and then it will be the next round. So this game takes place over 4 rounds. At the end of the game, after you've completed the night phase, then you have game end scoring. So at the end of the game, you will be able to now use your llamas and convert them to points. So this is really the only thing that's left to do at the end of the game. So if you have a certain number of llamas, you can decide how you want to split them up. So let's suppose I have 10 llamas, okay? I could use 9 of those llamas and add 25 points to either my sun or moon score, and then I could take the leftover llama and gain 1 point. Or I could do like 5 and 5, so I could take 5 llamas and add 15 points to my sun score, and then 5 llamas to add 15 points to my moon score. So it's up to you how you divide your llamas, but you will use your llamas and convert them to points. So 1 llama equals 1 point, 2 is 3 points, 3 is 6 points, 4 is 10 points, 5 is 15 points, 6 is 19 points, 7 is 22 points, 8 is 24 points, and 9 is 25 points. And yeah, so you can convert a maximum of 9 llamas for 25 points. And then whoever has, then again, you check to see your lowest score marker of the 2 score markers, and that will be your ending score for the game, and then whoever has the highest score of those is the winner. In case of a tie, the tied player whose other score marker is the closest to the former is the winner. So that's why you want to keep your score markers close together, and that is the game. So it might seem complicated, but it's really not. Like, the actions are so simple, and really you're just counting up suns. You're trying to uncover suns in order to get those sun points, which are really crucial in the beginning of the game. So it's really, really important to get sun points. I can't emphasize that enough, because at the beginning of the game, I was not able to score for these rainy tiles that we were coming across. I was falling really behind in sun points. I was moving really far up the island track. In fact, I was the only one who reached the very top, but that was useless, because if I have a shit ton of moon points, but my sun is really far behind, it's my sun score that is going to count as my score at the end of the game. And I didn't have enough llamas to really catch up my sun score to my moon score at the end of the game, unfortunately. But it is a super fun game, and out of the 3 games in this trilogy, this is by far the most fun, I would say. But again, very punishing if you are not paying attention to your sun score. But yeah, it's a really fun game with just very simple actions to take, but can be punishing. But I really enjoyed it. Everyone who played it really, really enjoyed this game. So I highly recommend it. I'm not sure if I have much else to say about it. I thought it was just a really fun game. Yeah, which nice little fun things going on, because again, it's like a few little mini games. Like you have, you know, your like tapestry, you have your pottery, you have your lake board, and then the corn thing. So you're doing your own kind of little thing. The thing that is kind of limiting though, is that you probably can't see it from the picture, but each track, the actions are shown in the same order. So it's always going to go, so starting with the first action spot, so here you'll see that it's on the purple, it's pottery, corn, tapestry, boat. And then you'll always see, so no matter which track you're on, the corn action is always after a pottery. And then after the corn action is always going to be a weaving action. And then after a weaving is always going to be a boat action. So it's not like it's randomized. It's not random at all. So all the tracks are going to have the same action spaces in the same order. However, each track starts with a different action space each. But then after that, the order is just going to be the same for all of the tracks. And again, you want to pay attention to where those Raimi tiles are and which Ayar is going to reach one of those tiles first, and just kind of pay attention to what is going to score first when it comes to those Raimi tiles, because if you don't, you will fall really behind in sun points. But I think that that's about it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I would highly recommend this game. So I think I showed all the components as well. This is the first player marker, if anyone wants to see what that looks like. Yeah. Just a really, really fun game. And I think if you're playing with like 2 players or something, you have this overlay to place onto your Tombow grid. So, you know, it comes with that. So it does change things up for a lower player count. But yeah, but that was Ayar, and I highly recommend it. It's a really fun game, and I would say it's much easier to play than Sankore for sure. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then you should check it out. So let's move on. So I did not anticipate spending like an hour talking about Ayar. That took much longer than I thought it would, and I know that it still was not the best explanation. I feel like I jump around too much and maybe don't go in the exact order that I should, and I never plan these videos out about how I'm going to talk about the game. So yeah, so anyway, I did play some other games in the last week. I played a game of Dreadful Meadows, which I really enjoy because of spooky season, and there's a new expansion coming out for Dreadful Meadows soon on Kickstarter, which I'm planning on backing. And then I also played a game of Culling, but I'm not going to talk about that because that is the publisher that went out of business, Final Frontier Games, and a lot of people lost money on that campaign, me included, because I was planning on backing the expansion. I did back the expansion for that game, plus some other things. I think I lost about $100 on that campaign, but I know a lot of other people lost a lot more who didn't even own the base game Culling and wanted to own it. So I'm not going to talk about it because it's like, what's the point? It's not like a game that people can actually even purchase now or get. You might be able to purchase it, but if anyone is selling a copy of it, but I would guess that they're selling it for a really marked up price if they are, because it's an out of print game now. And then another game I played again recently is Rattus. So that's my third play of Rattus, but since this video is already so long, I'm not going to talk about it. So maybe in next week's video, we shall see. So those are some other games that I played in the last week. So let's move on. So let's move on to games that I'm backing. So I'm actually backing 2 things right now. So the first thing I'm backing is the Obsession Rules Compendium, the Victorian Big Box, and Play Mat. So as you all know, Obsession is like my all-time favorite game. I absolutely love it. And so the designer, Dan Halligan, came out with He's been working on a compendium, which looks amazing. So it's going to be one giant rule book for the base game plus all of the expansions. And, you know, I know that people have had complaints about his rule books in the past. So hopefully this is in a much better format that will make it more understandable. So I'm really excited to see that. And then a really big box to hold everything. And I'm not sure if the box will actually even hold the playmat or not. If it does, that would be pretty freaking awesome, but I'm not sure if it does. But I'm backing the whole thing to get all the new stuff, which I believe is level York, which is like $59 plus shipping, I think. So I'm backing that. And then I am backing another game from this one designer, Amanda Kastner, who is an illustrator designer. So I backed her little Cinderella at Midnight pocket game. So now she has another pocket card game, wallet game on Kickstarter, which is called Midsummer Night, a game of partners, pets, and fairy potions. So it's a puzzly pocket-sized game with red reveal potions and whimsical hand-painted watercolor art for 1 to 2 players. So I'm backing that because I did enjoy her little Cinderella pocket game, wallet game. And if you do back this, you do have the opportunity to add on the Cinderella game if you missed out on that. So yeah, so that there is an opportunity for that as well. So excited to get this. I really love her artwork, and it was an enjoyable game, even though I think it was like the first game she ever created, that Cinderella one, but I thought it was fun regardless of it just being like a little small wallet game. It's just a cute little whimsical game with really pretty artwork. So I just really enjoyed it. So if you want, you can back both games and get all the bonus cards and stuff that come with the games as well. So I missed out on the promo card, I think, that came with the Cinderella game somehow, because I think I late pledged it. So yeah, so so I'm backing this because the artwork and stuff just looks really cool, and I just like the first game as well. So I'm backing that. So those are the only 2 things I'm backing. And speaking of small games, the only 2 arrivals I have are these 2 small tin games, which I had backed on Kickstarter. One is called Heritage Farms and the other is called Verdant, Arizona, and it's published by Gallons Games. So just 2 little small tin games. I'm not gonna open up the Heritage Farms one because it was kind of a pain for me to figure out how to put everything back in, but it includes a lot of little tokens and cubes and stuff, and then some cards at the bottom. And already it's not closing properly. Yeah, see, it's already popping open, so I have to figure that out later. And then Verdant, Arizona includes some little birdie tokens and then some cards. So these games, both of them are 1 or 2 player games only. So there were some other games that were on this campaign, but I didn't back those because the themes and stuff did not appeal to me. So these were the only 2 that appealed to me, which I backed. So those arrived, and that is all for new arrivals this week. So let's move on. So I just want to give a quick update, culling update. So I did, put aside a bunch of games that I'm culling into piles. I've so far sold only 3 games. So those are to friends. So I actually haven't even posted all the photos in like a Facebook group yet or anything, because I just feel like I won't really have time between now and the end of December when I leave for my vacation to really ship anything. I just feel like I always have too much stuff going on. So I feel like I want to post all the games in publicly when I feel like things are a bit more relaxed, and it's not convention season and I'm not going to be traveling anywhere, so I can just do things in a more relaxed way, not stressful way. But for anyone who's watching who won a giveaway previously, if you would like to see which games I'm selling, please shoot me an email and I'll send you photographs of the games I'm selling in case you would like to purchase one and then combine on shipping and save on shipping for the game that you have previously won from me. And I realize that I still have so many more games that I need to pull out to go to the cull pile, because yesterday when I had friends over for a game day and I was trying to find my game of Coloma because it wasn't on any of my shelves in this room, it wasn't on my shelves downstairs, and I have these big boxes filled with games that I haven't ever taken out or put anywhere because I have no space for them. I looked through all the big boxes and I couldn't find it. And then I had some smaller boxes in the closet in my office downstairs, and then I had to start pulling out all these boxes from my closet and going through each one. And then finally I found my copy of Coloma. But in doing so, I came across so many other games and I'm like, holy crap, like I just have way too many. So it made me realize that there is still a shit ton of games I need to add to the cull pile, because there's just games that I just totally forgot I had. So yeah, so there's going to still be a lot of organizing to do and culling to do. Yeah, so that's just a quick update on culling. But if you would like to see what I have in the sell pile right now, please feel free to shoot me an email at boardgamesinamminute@gmail.com, and I'll give you a good price if you are someone who watches my content, just because I'd rather just be able to get rid of these games than hang on to them forever, hoping to get what I want for them. So, you know, it's just better to just maybe just get rid of them and yeah, just make space. So feel free to reach out if you want to see what I am getting rid of. Okay, so let's move on. So for a quick cat update, I did reach out to a bunch of publishers to see if they would be willing to donate games for a fundraiser. I heard back from 3 and 2 of them were rejections, and the rest did not respond at all. So the one that is donating games is Garfield Games, which is very awesome of them. So they are going to be donating the whole South Tigris trilogy. So Wayfarers of the South Tigris, Scholars of the South Tigris, and then Inventors of the South Tigris. So 3 brand new games from that. So that's really exciting. So a huge thank you to Shem Phillips for that. And then the other 2 publishers who I heard back from who said that they cannot you know, donate any games. One of them was Stonemaier Games, and he actually pointed me to a whole page on his website that talks about charity and fundraising and stuff like that. So he explained like where he does contribute or donate games to and stuff like that, but he never ever contributes, gives games for raffle fundraisers. Like that's just a policy of his. So there's a whole section on Stonemaier's website talking about how they give back and stuff like that. So that's understandable because he has like a set policy about that. So totally understand that. But one of the things he wrote on his website in this section was that for content creators, once a content creator has a copy of a game, it's up to them what they do with it. So I do have a copy of Vantage, which I still have to play. So I'm hoping I can just maybe play it once and then talk about it. So, and then give away my copy of Vantage in the fundraiser, the raffle fundraiser. Because honestly, I doubt it's a game that I will probably be interested in playing many times anyway. So if I can manage to play it before FlagCon happens, great. But if I don't manage to play it even before FlagCon happens, since he had written on his whole page about where he actually gives games to for charitable reasons, he wrote that if you're a content creator and get a game from me, then you can do whatever you want with it. And I think that that's his way of saying, if you get a game and you want to use it for a raffle fundraiser, then by all means go ahead, because that he has no control over then. But still, just to stay on good terms with the publisher, it would be a good idea for me to at least play the game once before I add it to the raffle fundraiser. So I'm going to try really hard to at least play a solo game at least one time of that game and then add it to the raffle fundraiser, because I really want to add games that people will actually want to buy tickets for in order to win. If I just include a bunch of like old games from like 10 years ago, who's going to really want to buy tickets to win those? Unless there's a whole bunch of games, I don't know. So I really hope more publishers respond and we get more donations, because I really wanted to raise at least $2,000 for Rock Cat. So I'll be really disappointed if that doesn't happen. Yeah, we'll see. Speaking of fundraising, I did actually upload my shirt design to Bonfire. I'll include a link below. If anyone wants to purchase Board Games in a Minute t-shirt, I'll make a little bit of money from it, and that money of course goes to feeding stray cats. So I think I've mentioned before on this channel, I spend a minimum of $400 a month just on feeding the stray cats. So it's very expensive. So if you do buy a shirt, you know, it's just a little bit that can help and you get something out of it too. I actually did receive a really generous donation recently from a friend of this channel. So a friend of mine who I met on Twitter actually a few years ago, maybe, I don't remember how long ago we met on Twitter, but he actually gave me a really generous donation recently for the cats that I take care of. So a huge thank you to Hogan for that very generous donation for the cats. So I guess that's my update there. So let's move on. So I feel really terrible about this, but I did not do any readings for this week's fiction book club or nonfiction book club. So if you are watching this, just refer to last week to see what we need to read for the next time, because I did not get around to doing the readings for either, but I hope that I will for next week. I just was really busy with a lot of other things and it just didn't happen. And sometimes I'll do my readings on Sunday before I shoot my videos, which usually leaves me feeling stressed because I'm always like, okay, I need to read this amount of pages and this amount of time, and then I need to shoot my video, and then I have to do this during the day, and this and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And I had a lot of stuff planned to do today, so I just wanted to be able to shoot my video a little bit earlier so I could get to all the other things I need to do today. So yeah, so no book clubs for this week, and for that I apologize, but you know what the reading assignments are, so hopefully we will talk about the fiction and nonfiction chapters next week. So let's move on. So in this week's rant of the week, I guess people have heard the news about the ceasefire. So firstly, whenever there's a ceasefire announced, Israel always, you know, escalates its violence and killing, which it did in this situation as well. So even after the ceasefire was announced and agreed to, Israel was still killing Palestinians. And if you follow content creators on Instagram, you would know that because they were still reporting about it. And as Palestinians have started to get back into Gaza, what do we see? The headlines reporting, you know, there's just been so many infuriating headlines. Like there's people, like there's, I can't remember if it was the New York Times or which news outlet that was like, oh, Palestinians returning to abandoned homes. Like abandoned homes makes it seem like they just left their homes for no good reason and now they're returning back to them. Like it mentions nothing about why they had to abandon their homes. They were abandoning them because they had to flee for their safety, for their lives. And, you know, do you think any of these news outlets are showing how Gaza is in complete ruins? Like there's literally nothing there for them to return to. Like they're just returning to dust and rubble and bones and people buried beneath the dust and rubble. So, you know, we're talking about God knows how many years of cleanup and work that will need to be done to make this place livable again. And that's just something that you don't see people really talking about. You know, people, I've been seeing people from, you know, the right-wing side posting stupid, shitty things like, oh, I wonder if all the pro-Palestinian people are going to thank Trump now. Like, you know, it's all because of Trump that this happened. And I'm like, God, these people are just so fucking stupid. And thank him for what? Like, and I saw one person, God, what did he post? Yeah, it was something like that. Oh yeah, it was something along the lines like, oh, Trump freed Palestine. So I wonder if people, all the free Palestine people will thank Trump for freeing Palestine. And I'm like, these people are so fucking stupid. They don't even understand what the words free Palestine mean. Free Palestine didn't mean just an end to Israel bombing the shit out of Palestine and killing countless Palestinians in the genocide. Free Palestine means an end to the illegal occupation. And I consider the entire state of Israel to be an occupation of what is Palestine. Like the state of Israel should never have come into existence. And if anything, this genocide shows the world what evil Zionism is and what it means for the Palestinians. And again, it wasn't just starting with October 7th, like this went back more than 75 years ago that Palestinians have been dealing with Israel killing them and treating them like worse than second-class citizens, and just having control of their electricity, their water, their right to health care, and just so many things. Like, there's just so much there that people can read and learn about. But with this ceasefire announced, what do we know is going to happen? Like, all the people who supposedly cared about the genocide, who were trying to convince people like me to vote for Kamala Harris, are all of a sudden like literally not going to care about Palestine at all anymore. And I think they already showed that when Trump was elected. Like, when Trump was elected, all the claims that they made about Palestine, like, oh, you should vote for Kamala because, she'll be better for the Palestinians. Like, all these people who were trying to convince me to vote for Kamala, I never saw once post about Palestine since Trump was elected as president. And now that the ceasefire has happened, they're just going to go back to going to brunches or whatever it is that they do, and just caring about the things that are happening in this country, because they never really cared about Palestine ever anyway. The right-wing people are acting like Trump is some savior of the Palestinians, when he's not. So, still very angry about that. And we still want to see Netanyahu tried for his war crimes. Like, he belongs in The Hague, he and all the other war criminals, and that includes Trump, that includes Biden, that includes Kamala. Like, it includes all these people who aided and abetted Israel in its genocide. It includes all of them. They're all fucking war criminals. And so, yes, even if Israel stops dropping bombs on Gaza, that doesn't mean that Palestine is free. Palestine is not free, and it's still illegally occupied, and they're still going to be subjected to a lot of torture and horrible treatment, like they always have. So it's just really, that's just the way it is. And even after the ceasefire was announced with Palestine, Israel was bombing the south of Lebanon still. And I'm sure that they will continue to bomb Yemen and, and Syria, because they still have hopes of greater Israel, which we've seen. And we've seen some Israeli officials say really horrible things, as they always do. But since the ceasefire was announced, some Israeli officials have said things which make their intent very clear, that they are not done, with killing Palestinians and trying to turn Gaza into a resort and all of that. Like, so they are continuing to make statements which shows that once they get their hostages back, that they will resume with their violence against Palestinians, and will resume with killing Palestinians. So people like me are not going to take a breath of relief here, because there is no relief. And again, what are the Palestinians going back to? Like, I am happy if no more bombs are being dropped on Palestinians and no more lives are being lost, but it was a genocide, and over 600,000 innocent Palestinians were killed, which includes over 40,000 babies. So, where is the win here? Like, the win should have been stopping this the day it started, but no, there is no winning here, and there's no winning when the occupation of Palestine continues. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. But for the rant of the week, I'm going to talk about someone who I've mentioned on my channel a few times, and that is Curvin from 4Y Games, who posts on TikTok. I don't really see his posts anywhere else. But again, as I've mentioned, this is someone who talks a lot about diversity and creating safe spaces. And he recently made a TikTok just a couple days ago, again, with the title Diversity in the Board Game Industry. And he starts this TikTok by saying how there are diverse creators who only care about their own type of people being safe and don't care about diversity about other diverse groups being safe. And I was like, well, that's the pot calling the kettle black, because I have yet to see Curvin ever say anything about Palestine, about the genocide in Palestine. And people might be like, well, that's talking about politics. That's not talking about keeping people safe or making a safe space for everyone at the table. Well, it certainly is, because what Arab or Muslim is going to want to play games with someone who wants to see them fucking exterminated? Like, what Arab or Muslim is going to feel safe playing with games with someone who wants to see them killed? So if there are people in this industry who are dead silent about the genocide and are going a step further and supporting Zionists in this industry who want to see Palestinians dead, like, how is that creating a safe space for Arabs and Muslims? So I had posted a comment on his video and I was like, well, you know, you're kind of guilty of what you're saying here, because I've never seen you once condemn the genocide of the Palestinians. So how are Arabs and Muslims supposed to feel safe? So you're also doing the same thing here by only talking about certain groups when you talk about diversity, because, you know, he tends to talk about people from his own ethnic background. He talks about, LGBTQ plus people because he's gay and so on. But he's never talked about, the genocide of the Palestinians. Well, he deleted that comment, so then I posted 2 more comments. And then in the comments I posted as follow-up, I also asked him, I was like, well, you do realize that your good friend Matthew Ryan followed Charlie Kirk from his personal Instagram account, and follows a bunch of MAGA people on TikTok. And here you are, really good friends with him. If you care so much about creating safe spaces, like, that's maybe something you might want to think about and reevaluate. Like, you're friends with someone who is following people who make utterly racist statements and homophobic statements even. And it makes no sense to me. It makes no fucking sense to me how people like him can just turn a blind eye to his friend following all these people who would not even approve of his own existence. Like, it really makes no fucking sense to me. So I had posted 2 more comments on his TikTok. I don't know if he deleted them or not, but he never responded, of course. So that's really my rant of the week. It's just the same as before, and now we're just going to see complete and utter silence, So I'm guessing that people like Eric Lang and Suzanne Sheldon and all those other people who were dead silent about the genocide have taken a sigh of relief, because they are probably thinking, oh good, the genocide is over and we never said a word about it, and now no one can really call us out on it, because even though it took more than 2 years for it to end, they can now take a sigh of relief and be like, they're in the safe zone now. But people like me will never ever forget. So, and I hope people who are watching this video will never ever forget who was utterly silent during this genocide. And again, it's not over, because we're going to see what happens once the hostages are returned. And Israel will probably go back to killing lots of Palestinians like it always does. And of course, don't forget about the West Bank and how Israel has been killing lots of people in the West Bank and illegally detaining people with no charges and all of that. So that is still happening and has been happening even as this genocide was ongoing. But yeah, until people are tried for their war crimes, until Palestine is Palestine again, it's really not over, and it's certainly not a free Palestine. And I wish people were enlightened enough to understand that, when we say free Palestine, we really mean free Palestine. It wasn't just end the genocide, it's free Palestine. They mean 2 different things. So that's that really. So that is my rant of the week. So let's move on. So before I get to this week's question of the week, last week I asked, what are some of your favorite games that were self-published? And I think maybe 1 or 2 people were like, well, what counts as self-published? So to me, I think it's basically when a designer publishes their own game. And even if they've created a company to publish their own game, if they are the owner of that company, then I consider it to be self-published. Now, what if that company becomes really big? So for example, like Obsession, Dan Halligan designed Obsession and he created Kayenta Games to publish his own game. Kayenta Games has not published any other board games. It's only Obsession. So I consider that to be self-published because Dan Halligan is the owner of Kayenta Games, and Obsession, the game he designed, is the only game that this publisher that he owns has published. Likewise, Paverson Games, which has published Now, Distilled, and Luthier, So Dave Beck, who is the designer of these games, he founded his publishing company, Paverson Games. However, you know, he might start publishing games from other designers. Like I know that he has a game that will be coming up to Kickstarter at some point soon, and I don't know if that is designed by someone else or himself, but if he's publishing his own games, and if his publishing company, I would say, still consists primarily of him, and maybe he has like a couple or a few employees helping him, then I would maybe consider that still self-published. I don't know, but let me actually see how many, if the new game that they're planning on publishing is designed by him or not as well. Let's see, because that might be a little bit telling. So yeah, Class of '89 is designed by Corey Jordan. Okay, so now he is going to be publishing games by other designers. So, you know, when he published Distill, we probably could have considered it to be self-published. But now that he is actually publishing games by other designers, like Corey Jordan obviously could not consider his game to be self-published. So when I think of self-published, I think of, you know, a designer who published their game themselves from their own publishing company, which they founded. But if that company grows into a bigger company and starts hiring other employees and starts publishing games by other designers, then those games I would not consider to be self-published. And any other games that he himself designs that he's going to publish from Paverson Games following Class of '89, I probably wouldn't consider to be self-published anymore if his company is of the size now where they can actually publish other designers' games. That's my own personal take on it. I think other people might have their own takes on what self-published means, but that would be my take on it. So just wanted to talk about that. Now, for this week's question of the week, I want to know what other games with a South American theme do you love and which one is your favorite? There are quite a few now, which is really nice. You know, a few that come to mind are Altiplano, Teotihuacan, I don't know how that is pronounced, Teotihuacan, I don't know. I'm totally butchering that. I think that's South American or maybe that's Mexico. I'm not really 100% sure. Besides Altiplano, what else is there? Pachacuna, which I played only once with a pre-production prototype copy. What else? I'm trying to think of what else I've played that has llamas in it, because I really like llamas. I really, really love llamas. When I was in law school, I was really obsessed with llamas and just dreamed of owning a llama someday. I always said if I owned a house, I would get a llama and just let it live in my backyard. And now I have a house and a backyard, and I'm wondering if I could get a llama, but I think my town ordinances say that we can't even keep chickens, so I really doubt they would allow me to keep a llama. But I will look into that. And if I did get a llama, I think I would want two so that, you know, it doesn't get lonely. But I'm imagining llamas are very expensive. But I think that the climate would be okay because it does snow here, and I'm guessing it snows in the Andes Mountains. This is something I will have to look into. But yeah, I will have to check my town ordinances and see how much llamas cost and what they eat and how much they eat. But yeah, let me know what are your favorite South American themed games in the comments below, and until next week, bye!